Hello, today we are going to discuss the sales process paradox. And we are going to dissect it and just, talk about it and talk about what that means for us in sales organizations as sellers. If you're here today, thank you for being here. If you are tuning in, I thank you for that. And I'm assuming that you're aiming to be a top 10% seller in your organization or in your market, because that's who I work with and that's who I speak to and just help you up level your performance. And over the past year, I've been able to help a couple of different sellers reach the very top of their organization where they had the highest closing ratios. So, a little bit about that later. If you want to go deeper into these topics, please sign up to my newsletter at the B2B Sales Mastery.beehive.com. I'll drop the link below. Okay, so let's get into it. So, if you're aiming to be a top 10% seller, we need to understand both the business that we're in and our client's business as well. And we have to understand how all these things work together. In sales, I think sales process has gotten a bad rap. It's kind of a dirty word, right? And it's a lot of it, I think, is because we don't understand why we need a sales process. And we feel like a sales process is going to put us into this box, right? Where it's going to be very rigid and we're forcing our clients through this rigid process and it just feels icky, right? And a lot of that is our fault as leaders. Like we haven't really educated our sellers or the teams that we lead on why we need a sales process. And we haven't really held our teams to the letter with regards to that, right? So our processes are all over the place. We create situations where we have sellers that are at the very top, and then we have a bunch in the middle, and then we have a bunch at the bottom. So there's a wide there's a wide discrepancy on the performance, right? So we have uh, a few top performers, and the rest are kind of like in the middle at the bottom. So anyway, if we're aiming to be a top 10% seller, we need to understand that we need a sales process. We need to follow a sales process. And I'm going to give you an example of that in a little bit later. But we also need to up-level our business acumen, which nobody teaches on, right? And this is actually a pet peeve of mine because in order to be a top 10% seller or top 10% in the market or your organization, you have to understand how business works. You have to understand your client's business and you have to understand the organization that you're in. And if you're searching for a role, you need to have a way to understand what kind of organization you are getting yourself into, right? And the way to do that is to understand and have really good business acumen and have really good foundations. So that's what we're going to talk about today. With the advent of AI, we just have to be better. Not understanding business acumen and not having a solid grasp on that, and not understanding that we need to have a solid sales process whereby we can run all our deals and run our business in is hurting us professionally and personally. It's why when layoffs happen, it's a surprise. And it's why we get put on PIPs. And it's also why our closing rate is all over the place. And we can't really figure out what we're doing from deal to deal. It feels very chaotic. It's because of that reason. We don't have a process in place and we don't have really solid developed business acumen. So to that end, as I always do, I'm going to read a post from a CEO. His name is Adam Spector. And this post demonstrates why sellers need to understand, why top 10 percenters need to understand and have really great business acumen so they can understand what kind of organization they're in and they can align their actions and their knowledge accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to read this. So he's saying a $2 million ARR company with 8 employees just raised a Series A at better valuation than a 2.4 million ARR company with 22 employees. What's the difference? The difference is the ARR per employee. The first company was generating $250,000 per seller. The second was generating $109,000 per seller. to a Series A investor that's looking at these two companies, it's easy for them to decide which company they're going to invest in. And that is the one that has the higher dollar amount per seller. So the 250K per seller with 8 employees versus 109 at 2.4. Okay. So this is so important because when your organization or when an organization is thinking about either downsizing, they're thinking about bringing AI in or something along these lines, it's because of this. And then he says, this is my hot take. This is quietly behind a lot of the layoffs you're seeing right now. So we're seeing a lot of promise around AI, although we haven't really seen the returns, but organizations are downsizing just on the promise, just on what they expect to happen. It hasn't really even happened yet, right? So this is what they're doing and seeing. Founders overhired during a window when headcount felt like a proxy or felt like momentum, and then they looked up one day and realized their ARR per employee was too low. So he goes on to talk about the 6-month ramp before a seller is productive and all of these things. So what does this mean for you? It means we need to understand things like this. So when we are looking for another role, when we're interviewing with the organization, okay, pay attention to this. We're interviewing with the organization. We need to ask questions, not just around quota attainment and all this stuff. We need to understand how many sellers are in the organization now. Do they plan to add more later? What is the average revenue that each seller is bringing in? And then we also need to understand, are they looking for more funding? Did they just get a funding round? All these things. And then understand, what is our potential in that role? What can we do in the role? Okay. And this goes right back to what I'm going to finish talking about, which is having a sales process in order to maximize the revenue you're able to create in that role. Okay. So we need to understand these things when we are looking at organizations, or when we are already in an organization, our org gets more funding, or we are hiring more people. Are we hiring too many people too fast? Are we hiring really high performers where they're going to max themselves out? What does that entire thing look like? Because this speaks directly to our career security, our job security. When AI enters into the mix, what happens then when more tools are in play and those roles get compressed? What you're able to contribute is going to matter at that point, right? And so that's why we need to understand that we need to have a sales process sooner rather than later, so we understand scenarios like this, that of the company that we're in or we're going to join, and our revenue potential. We're able to maximize our revenue potential, right? This is really, really important. Okay, I just wanted to drive that home. So again, his name is Adam Spector. He's CEO of Chore. I really did enjoy that that post that he made. So that was really great. Okay. So with regards to the sales process, okay, again, going back to the post, we need to understand how decisions are made, right? So we're talking about how decisions are made. We have business acumen, or we're developing that. We need to develop that in order to understand these things. And we need to understand how the business works and how they make decisions inside the organization, okay? And those numbers, those metrics, those KPIs directly affect how those decisions are being made. And if an organization is expecting AI to contribute all these things, that's going to affect where you fall on the spectrum in the revenue and where you fall on the list. If you're going to be below the 10% or you're going to be above that 10% line, right? So we need to understand all of those things. So if you don't know these things, look in your dashboard, figure out how many sellers are in your org or in your market, figure out what is the average revenue that each seller is contributing, and then you can just run the numbers and figure out where you are and figure out what your long-term prospects look like. Okay, so there's that part. Okay, so let me give you an analogy with regards to sales process. So before we do that, I see a lot of posts going around on LinkedIn all the time about don't put your don't put your buyers through a process. It doesn't matter what methodology you use and so forth and so on. Now, there is a little bit of truth to that. But the real truth is, here's the truth that no one will tell you, but I will tell you, is that we need a sales process. And the reason why we as an industry have not done it is because we don't have professional standards. You don't shoot the messenger. It just is what it is, right? We don't have professional standards as to what constitutes a great seller. In a lot of cases, we're flying by the seat of our pants. Our sales manager may or may not be coaching us, and they may or may not be doing it properly. This is the environment that has created this disdain for sales process and this disdain for order and sales methodology, and just not understanding why we need a methodology or a process in the first place. So there's no professional standards as far as sellers go. So we have just been flying by the seat of our pants. And up till this point, up till 2024, late 2024, we had the luxury of being able to do that. But now with AI into the mix, with revenue being more and more harder to come by, more competition in the market, and all these things, we don't have that luxury anymore. And now these things are coming back to roost, right? They're coming back to bite us, the things that we haven't done. Okay. So let me give you an analogy now. Imagine a house builder. Okay. So we're building a house. Imagine a house builder not having a process in place. Okay. I'm just let that sink in for a second. So they're building your house, but they don't have a process in place by which they're building the house. And so they just start helter-skelter all over the place, and then they just, troubleshoot problems as they arise. Like, what do you think that house is going to look like? What do you think it's going to end up being like? The foundation is going to be crappy, okay, because we haven't really planned out the foundation. We haven't built the foundation. Everything that's built on it up to that point is going to be suspect, and it's going to be fragile, okay? That's one example of a house builder. Think of also, if you're in tech, or even if you're not, a software developer writing code, okay? So imagine not having a process doing that. Imagine just trying to write code helter-skelter, not having a process by which you're doing that. It's complete and utter chaos, right? So then, understanding that analogy, we can see then why not following a methodology throughout the sales organization, throughout our sales process, and not having one leads to all this chaos. And we have now a lot of sellers not hitting their quota, a lot of organizations not hitting their revenue goals, and they can't figure out why. And they're just trying to, it's like, put your finger in the dike, right? It's like you put your finger in the dike and then another leak sprouts somewhere else and another one sprouts somewhere else, right? So this is what we're dealing with. So this is why it's really important that we just get to grips with this and understand that, yes, we need a sales process in order to maximize what we're doing, in order to learn and affect behavior change, which is going to cause you to close more deals faster with a higher average sales price or a higher ARR. That is just going to be the end result. Let me give you an example of this also. Okay, so I was coaching a seller. He was at a very large global organization that really didn't have a sales process to speak of. So everyone's just flying by the seat of their pants. Okay, so when I started working with him, we started working on getting him a sales process, a repeatable sales process that was simple, that makes sense, that he had the markers, that he can figure out what's going on in each deal every single time. A repeatable sales process, okay? He was in the SMB mid-market. By having that repeatable sales process, it gave him the confidence to look for another role in another organization, and now he's an enterprise sales rep, and he, in his previous organization, because of that process, we were able to get him to be the fastest ranking rep in his cohort, number one, and number two, with the highest closing ratio. Now he's at this other organization, and he, again, has the highest closing ratio in the entire organization. Not a surprise to me. And he's in enterprise, okay? And he got that promotion within 6 months. So that is what happens when we have a sales process in place. If your organization doesn't have one, you reach out to me. I'm happy to help you with that part. Again, go to my newsletter, the B2B salesmastery.com.beehive.com. I'll drop the link below and I can help you with that. Like, just reach out to me. But these are the things that will help you become better. And it's not just for the organization that you're in now, it's for your future role prospects. Okay. And the truth is that business acumen and process go hand in hand, they go together. So we need to be developing these things together, right? So not only are you able to operate more efficiently and better inside the organization that you're in, you're able to better and faster figure out your client's business problems. You're able to analyze those faster. You'll just be much, much quicker and much more effective. You'll be able to compress your sales cycle, and most likely your average sales price is going to go up and your closing rate is going to go up. Okay. And that's going to catapult you to the top 10%. And then all this stuff like this, AI and all these other things and these layoffs and stuff, that'll just be incidental, right? Those are things that are going to happen, but you can protect yourself by realizing that, yes, we need to, or I need to have a sales process in place and I need to get my business acumen better. Okay. So the bottom line is we can't run good deals in a chaotic fashion, in a chaotic organization where nothing is repeatable. We have to have a repeatable process in order to troubleshoot problems when they arise, close deals faster, because we're recognizing patterns across every deal, right? We'll recognize patterns across every buyer. So we need to have the sales process. We need to have a sales process. I don't care what anyone says. It just kind of is what it is, okay? If we don't have business acumen, we're not going to be able to help our clients solve their business problems like we should. And we're not going to be able to do them justice, right? And then our value as sellers goes down. And that's when we default to things like discounting our face off or selling transactionally because we don't know to do anything different. And transactional selling, if anything is going to be replaced by AI, that is it. It's transactional selling. And if you're selling transactionally, there's a way to fix that, but you're going to have to do some work and you're going to have to come to grips with the fact that, yes, I need a sales process and I need some kind of methodology to go along with that, right? They go together, okay? And then if we don't have a sales process, we're just going to be guessing from day to day inside a system that's also guessing, right? So a lot of organizations don't have a sales methodology in place. They have a qualification framework, which is something like BANT, which I hope you're not using. But they have that framework in place, but they're not having a methodology that they're using across the entire organization, across all deals. Okay, so we end up guessing inside a system that's guessing, and that is highly inefficient. And we're exposed in terms of our value inside the organization, what we can produce, and oftentimes we'll just hit a ceiling. We'll hit a ceiling because we don't know what we don't know. Right? And it's hard to ascertain patterns if we're not getting the same information all the time and we're not coaching and training to the same things all the time. Okay, so it's really, really difficult to be successful in the long term. Again, we've been successful up to this point, but now like the chickens are coming home to roost, and we need something. We need to be better. Now, I'm under no illusions because I've been around a long time, been around for over 20 years. And I know that there's going to be a lot of pushback with regards to this. And I know 85 to 90% of sellers are not going to do this. They'll watch this live and they'll let it go right over their heads, right? But 10% will take it to heart and they will realize that what I'm saying is truth. We need a sales process, a repeatable one, and we need to up-level our business acumen. AI is only going to get you so far, and AI is a complement to what we do as sellers, to what we bring to the table, and how we're able to help our buyers, okay? So that's it in a nutshell. Don't just look at things like quota, KPIs, and all these things. We have to be able to put it all together, have our business acumen, stop neglecting the foundation of our work of what we do from day to day, institute a sales methodology and a sales process, and that's something that I'll talk about a little bit later, and make sure that you are not running a guessing game inside your deals and you're not practicing on your buyers, right? That is very, very expensive and very costly. Okay. So I thank you for being here. I feel like I've gone on long enough. Again, if you want to go deeper into things like this is what I help sellers do. You can subscribe to my newsletter at the b2bsalesmastery.beehive.com. I'll drop the link below and I will see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.